Hey Nash, what should we make?
Well, Thanksgiving is coming up, so we have to make a bunch of Thanksgiving stuff to give our friends ideas for theirs. Let's make 4 proper sides and that cranberry salsa Grandpa was talking about.
All right, let's make a bunch of Thanksgiving sides. Welcome back to Chaos Kitchen, where we find Thanksgiving recipes and we make them to find out if they're good so you can make them for your Thanksgiving. Today, we're making a bunch of Thanksgiving sides. We are making a sausage cornbread stuffing, Ruth's crisp sweet potato casserole, a corn casserole, a zhuzhed up version of green bean casserole, way better than the standard, and a cranberry salsa. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's go. All right, so first you want to make or buy some cornbread. Then we want to put this onto some sort of a sheet pan, and then we want to either cut this into cubes if you're like OCD, or just break it up. It doesn't really matter. We just want to dry this out and turn it into essentially croutons. I mean, think about if you buy like the sort of packaged stuffing, you know, it's like a bunch of dry chunks. So that's what we're doing. And then we have our oven preheated to 300. So I'm gonna take this and throw it into our preheated oven for probably between 10 and 30 minutes. You don't want it to burn, we just want it to dry out and turn to, like, think croutons. So this is a little moist. So we want this to be like kind of hard and crackly, but not burned. So here we go. Then we want to dice an onion. It's okay, you don't have to cry. And this doesn't have to be super fine because we're putting in stuffing. It's not like a sauce, it's supposed to be smooth. So you know what, don't beat yourself up, do your best. And we dice some carrots, some celery, and a jalapeno if you're feeling spicy. If you like peppers but you don't want it to be spicy, you could use like bell peppers. Or, you know, if you're feeling real spicy, you could use some ghost peppers or some Carolina Reapers or some shit. Up to you. You do you, boo. And there we have our slightly spicier version of Mirepoix meets Holy Trinity kind of a deal. So we set that aside. And then in a hot pan on medium heat, a little bit of oil. Do we want oil or do we want butter? That's a good question. Let's do a little bit of each. Once your butter's melted, we add all our veggies in there. And honestly, you know what? Yeah, the standard is probably carrot, celery, onion. That's a Mirepoix. I think you take out the celery or maybe the carrots. I think you take out the carrots. Add peppers, that's a Holy Trinity, more of a Southern thing, more of a Louisiana thing. But you know what? Use whatever you like, use whatever you got. That's what I say. And then we get these sort of mixed in, get them cooking, and then we just want to cook these until they're kind of softened. We're not going for like full-on caramelization here. Just get them cooked till they're softened and get a little bit of color, get a little bit of flavor. We're trying to build on these flavors here, right? Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna add a little bit of kosher salt, kind of sweat these guys out. Also gonna add a little bit of pepper and a little bit of garlic. Once your veggies have started to soften and change color a little bit, get a little bit of color, a little bit of caramelization. Then we go ahead and clear out a landing spot in the middle. Give that just a touch of oil. Then we throw in a few cloves of minced garlic. Spread that out a little bit. Let that cook until fragrant, about 45 seconds. Then we stir that in. Then we add about a pound of sausage. You can use whatever sausage you want. I've done this with a bunch of different sausages. Sweet Italian, hot Italian. Today we're using breakfast sausage just because I like the flavor. I like the spice profile. It's got a lot of sage in it and some other stuff. And that doesn't necessarily need to be like the flavor profile for a breakfast food. Anyways, use whatever you prefer, you know? I think last year we did this kind of a similar recipe with chorizo. So do whatever you want. You do you, boo. Stir this in, get everything sort of combined. And then we just want to let this cook. Once your sausage is all the way cooked, we can go ahead and kill the heat and set that aside. So then we take out a big bowl, or you could literally just do this in the pre-greased casserole dish that we're about to use to reduce stuff you have to clean up. But again, just for you, we're using this glass bowl so you can see everything going on and all that good stuff. So we put in our sausage veggie mixture, then we dump in all of our now stale cornbread stuff. And then for each of these, fresh is gonna be better, but we throw in a few teaspoons of parsley. I just don't have any fresh, so we're using this freeze-dried stuff. A little bit of rosemary, some thyme. Time is on my side. And some sage. And then we add some salt, pepper, garlic, and smoked paprika, 2 beaten eggs, And we mix everything together. If you want to do a mixture of like cornbread and some other bread, you go for it, because that's what most recipes call for when they are making cornbread recipes. I happen to love cornbread, so that's what I'm doing. You do you, boo. I don't know. Set this aside. Take out a greased casserole dish. Preheat your oven to 350. Pour all of your dressing. I know there's a desire to call it stuffing, but apparently it's only stuffing if it is stuffed inside of the turkey. Anything that is cooked or whatever outside of the turkey is called dressing. I don't know where that comes from, because in the States, you know, we have our literally salad dressing, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I don't know. It is what it is. So technically this is dressing. We're gonna go ahead and throw this in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. And here's our stuffing slash dressing right out of the oven. It's nice and golden brown on top. It looks beautiful. And let it cool for a little bit, or a lot of bit. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. And then it's ready to serve. And there we have our sausage cornbread stuffing. And for our Ruth's Chris sweet potato casserole, we start with either 2 large or maybe 3 sort of small, 3-ish, 2-ish, medium. I don't know. This is like a big ass and like a medium ass, so I don't know. And then take a paring knife or a fork and just sort of stab them like they owe you money. We're gonna let Chef Mike cook these, but you could also cook these in the oven. However, that takes a lot longer, or you could boil them, also takes quite a bit longer. So we're going with the most time efficient method, Chef Mike. So we're just gonna sort of loosely cover each of these guys in some paper towel and then cook them in the microwave for, one would be 7 minutes, where I'm hoping 10 minutes is good for 2. Yeah, let's go with that metric. So if you had like 3, then maybe, I don't know, 13, 12, something like that. So we got our guys, boom, boom, and boom, and we go cook. And once your sweet potatoes are cooked, we want to preheat our oven to 375. And then we just gotta pull the skins off of these guys. And yeah, you could let them cool. That would make the most sense. But we don't do things that make sense here on this channel. So we're just gonna sort of peel the skin off like this. And then we take out a big old bowl. Really, you should do this in a stand mixer, but mine's in the garage and I'm lazy and I don't want to get it out. So we're gonna hand mix this. Also, when it comes to any sort of like mashed potato type dish, I kind of actually prefer it chunky. But if you like it smooth, then use either a hand mixer or use your KitchenAid if you have one. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. Use a hand mixer or just stir more. Use more elbow grease. I don't know. And we add in 1 cup of white sugar. Then we just start mashing. And I gotta be honest, I am not really a fan of sweet potato dishes. I love sweet potatoes, but I prefer a more savory type sweet potato. So I don't make everything just for me. Some things I make I don't love, and that's okay. I try to approach it kind of even keeled, you know, and if it's something that, hey, like I know a lot of people are into sweet potato dishes. But if I do love it, then you know it's good. All right, so for me, that looks pretty good. So we're gonna move on to the next step. Oh yeah, that's really sweet. I don't know how I feel about that. Then we add a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of softened butter. Can you use melted? Probably. I don't know. And then we sort of just mix that in. Then we add a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we just mix this. You're supposed to whip it with your mixer until it doubles in volume. So we're just gonna try and do that with our hands, because that's how we do things around here. But hey, you know what? Use a mixer. Make things easy for yourself. All right, the salt helps, but it's still too sweet. But like I said, it's not all about me. Some of y'all are probably into that. So I'm doing this for you. And then we transfer this to a pre-greased casserole dish. So let's go ahead and do that. Just smooth out the top there. Put the extra back in there. And then we throw this into our 375 oven for about 30 to 35 minutes until the center is set, but slightly jiggly and edges are beginning to brown. Off we go. Okay, so I messed up a little bit and I forgot 1 ingredient, so I had to add it after the fact and then forgot to turn on the camera. Long story, but you want to add 2 beaten eggs to that sweet potato mixture and then bake it. While that's baking, get out some sort of a bowl or something rather, and we're gonna make our toppings. So we got a half a cup of chopped pecans, a half a cup of brown sugar packed. It's supposed to be light brown sugar. Do use whatever you got. I don't think it matters. A quarter cup of flour, half a teaspoon of salt, and we just kind of mix this up, get rid of any of the clumps from the brown sugar specifically. Just try to kind of incorporate everything as best you can. Then we take 2 tablespoons of melted butter and just kind of drizzle this over the top. And then we just stir this in. Doesn't seem like enough butter to do this, but we want to just incorporate the butter into our mixture. You just made new clumps with the butter, so try and kind of get rid of those. I've been to Ruth Chris before. I don't believe I've ever had this side dish, but I'm getting the feeling it's gonna be more like a dessert. But again, I'm not really a sweets guy, so maybe you are. So I'm making this for you, whoever you are. All right, so once you feel comfortable with your level of incorporation and or you just ran out of patience and didn't want to stir anymore, then we can go ahead and set that aside. And once your sweet potato mixture is done, take it out of the oven, but leave the oven on. Then we take our little con mixture and just sort of try to disperse it evenly. That'll do, pig. That'll do. And then back in the oven for another 10 minutes. Here's our guy right out of the oven. And there we have our Ruth's Chris sweet potato casserole. And for our corn casserole, we start with a large bowl, and then we start with our dry ingredients. So 1 box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. That's 8.5 ounces, in case you're confused. Apparently it's America's favorite, so hey, congratulations guys, you won, yay.
You did it! Congratulations!
And then 1.5 tablespoons of white sugar. We mix this up and try to get rid of lumps apparently. So if you know, you know. I'm not a baker. When it comes to baking, it's not really my forte, but I try my best when it's required. All right, that's to me good enough. So we set that aside, get out a smaller bowl, maybe call it a medium bowl, I don't know. And then to this bowl, we're gonna add our wet ingredients, or most of our wet ingredients, I guess. So 2 beaten eggs, 2/3 of a cup of milk. The recipe calls for whole milk. Use whatever you got, let's be honest. 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream, and a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 stick of melted butter. Then we go ahead and whisk this all together and set that aside. Then we bring back our big bowl and we add our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients, plus a teaspoon of salt and about a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, garlic powder, and smoked paprika. Apparently this little thing was wet when I poured those in because they're sticking, oh well. And then 2 cups of frozen corn that you've thawed and drained, and 1 can of creamed corn. Let me mix all this together. Make sure your oven's preheated to 400. And then we get out a pre-greased casserole dish and we pour our mixture into here. And just give it a little jiggle and a little smack, and this looks very liquidy, so I have my reservations about whether this will work or not. But allegedly, we baked this for 45 to 50 minutes, and we'll find out together if it actually works. And here's our guy right out of the oven. And there we have our corn casserole. I know it looks like cornbread, but I promise it's different. We'll find out shortly. So we've all had green bean casserole. It's a fine side, but it can be a little basic. So today we're gonna zhuzh it up a little bit. So we're gonna start with about 1.5 pounds of green beans, and then we just cut these guys all in half. It doesn't have to be perfect. They don't have to be uniform. So just, you know, do your best. On some of these super long ones, you might wanna cut them into thirds. Just, you know, do whatever feels right. Do whatever makes you happy. Then we wanna dice 1 yellow onion, preheat your oven to 350, and thin slice some cremini mushrooms. Then we bring a few quarts of water up to a boil, salt it, and then we're gonna blanch our green beans. So we just wanna put them in here for about 2 to 3 minutes. We just wanna cook these until they get kind of a nice, bright, vibrant green. Once your green beans are blanched, you can kill the heat, scoop them out, and transfer them to an ice bath. Try not to spill them on the floor like me. And that way they stop cooking, because we don't wanna, we'll cook them later. Then in a skillet on medium heat, throw in 2 tablespoons of butter, let that melt. Then we can throw in our onions. Those all kind of spread out. Can add a little bit of salt. And then we just kind of stir these around and let them cook. Probably about 6 or 7 minutes. Once your green beans have cooled, we go ahead and drain them. And then we get out a greased casserole dish and add them into there. Spread them out a little bit. Even them out a little bit. Do the thing, you know. Then we set that aside. Then once your onions have softened and they have a little bit of color, then we're gonna add 2 more tablespoons of butter. And then we add our mushrooms. Just get those stirred in, stirred around. Try to get some of that that butter in there. And then as these cook, they're gonna sweat, meaning they're gonna, because they're full of liquid, so they're gonna release that liquid. So we just wanna cook this until that liquid gets released and then the moisture's all gone. So that probably take about, I don't know, 15 minutes, give or take a minute or two. Just kind of stir this fairly regularly until that happens. Then once your moisture is pretty much gone and all these have some nice color and they're nicely softened and cooked down, then we can go ahead and kill the heat and remove them from the pan. Then we take our mushroom and onion mixture and just sort of pour it over the top of our green beans. We're gonna stir this later, so it doesn't really matter. Now we're gonna make our roux. So in the same skillet on medium heat, we're gonna melt 4 tablespoons of butter. Once that's melted, we whisk in a 1/4 cup of flour and just get this stirred around until it's combined and smooth and the smell of raw flour kind of goes away. And you get this sort of more nutty kind of smell. We just kind of want to do this until it turns like a golden brown. We're not making a dark roux that you'd make for like a gumbo or something like that. Then we slowly whisk in 3 cups of milk. And you want to do it slowly so that you don't get any lumps. Once all your milk is mixed in, you have a nice smooth mixture, then add a cup of chicken broth. We whisk that in. Bring that up to a simmer. Then we add a little bit of salt, some pepper, and the 2 cloves of minced garlic that I was supposed to add to the onions and the mushrooms. Then we're going to stir this in, and then we just want to let this simmer until it thickens, stirring occasionally, probably about 5 minutes. Yeah, I could have used white pepper. That would be the right thing to do in a white sauce, but I don't really care. It's a green bean casserole. Once your sauce is thickened, you want to lower the heat, and then we add in a pound of gnocchi. And just sort of break up any of them that stick together. Get them stuck in your whisk. That's cool. Now, normally the way you cook gnocchi is you just throw it in boiling water and then as soon as it floats to the top, it's done. But we're just gonna cook it in the sauce. And then it's gonna cook more in the mixture. So we just need to cook this for like a minute, maybe 2. Then we can kill the heat. Then we add our sauce and gnocchi to our green beans. And then we just give this a good stir and try and kind of even out the top a little bit. And then we throw this into our 350 oven for 30 minutes. And here's our guy after 30 minutes. Then we're just gonna take some of these fried onions, crispy fried onions, put these over the top, and then throw it back in the oven for another 10. And here's our guy right out of the oven. And there we have our zhuzhed up green bean casserole. So we saved the quickest and the easiest for last. So we take a bunch of cilantro, literally a bunch, and just chop that up. And everything we're chopping here, you don't need to dice it. We just need a rough chop because we're just gonna put it in a food processor. Then we take a green onion, cut the bottom and the top off, and then just, I don't know, rough chop this. And then a jalapeno. So just kind of cut the top off. You could de-seed it if you wanted to. It's up to you. I'm not going to. So that's what we got. That's everything that needs chopping. So then to our food processor, we add 12 ounces of cranberries. Cranberry sauce is okay. It's kind of whatever. It's decent, you know. Fresh is pretty good. Canned is kind of garbage. I was talking to my dad and he's like, hey, I heard one of the DJs on this radio show I was listening to talk about cranberry salsa. That might be good. So it's like, F it, let's try it. So we're gonna throw in 3/4 of a cup of white sugar because cranberries are kind of sour and bitter. And then we're gonna add our green onions, our cilantro, and our jalapeno that we just chopped. And then 2 limes, sorry, the juice of 2 limes. Or if you want a sweeter sauce, you could do sub all or some of that with pineapple juice. So I'm gonna do 1 lime and a splash of pineapple juice. And then we mix this up, and how much you wanna mix it depends on how chunky or smooth you like your salsa. To me, that looks pretty good. And then we just transfer this to some sort of a receptacle. Whoops, yep, that's cool. And then you can either serve this fresh or put a lid on it and throw it in the fridge and let those flavors marry, meld, whatever. And it'll honestly probably only end up tasting better. So there we have our cranberry salsa. All right, so we got our 5 sides. Now it's time to plate. So we're gonna make a plate with all Thanksgiving sides. Here we go. We start with some stuffing. Yeah, obviously that wasn't gonna come out clean, but that's okay. We'll make it work. Then we'll do a little bit of our sweet potato casserole, our Ruth's Chris sweet potato casserole, right there. Then we'll do some of our corn casserole, right there. And some of our green bean casserole, and this obviously isn't gonna come out in it's not gonna come out in a clean piece. It's a little messy, like your life, or my life. I'm not judging you. And then we'll finish it off with some of our cranberry salsa right in the middle. And there we have our Thanksgiving sides. And it's time for a bite. So we'll start with the stuffing. Cheers. It's really good. It's cornbread, it's stuffing, it's seasoning, it's all the veggies. It's just, I don't know, if you like cornbread, do this. If you kind of like cornbread, do this, but split it with half of some other bread. And if you don't like cornbread, then this isn't for you. Don't know what to say. No surprise, I love cornbread, so this is highly recommend. On to Ruth's crisp sweet potato casserole. Cheers. Now, I mentioned that I don't really like sweet potato dishes. This isn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It is a little too sweet for me, but it's actually pretty good. I would definitely make this again and probably just reduce the amount of sugar you add, or maybe just get rid of it altogether. Make it as is if you're into sweet stuff, or if you're into sweet potato dishes, give this a try because it's actually pretty good. But I would say if I were to make it again, for me, I would probably make it without all the added sugar. Kind of recommend on that one. On to our corn casserole. Cheers. Okay, that's really good. I really like that. It's kind of like if cornbread and like cream corn had a baby. Give it a try. Out of 10? I don't know. Now our gnocchi green bean casserole. Cheers. That is really, really good for a few reasons. First of all, adding the gnocchi, plus, you know, the mushrooms and onion, it's got a little bit of a textural upgrade from your typical casserole, but also making that sort of roux and then the bechamel and then the sauce, it just adds a flavor that is so much more distinct, so much better than like just throwing in a can of soup, like condensed mushroom or chicken soup goop. Highly recommend this. It's freaking delicious. I'm not a huge fan of green bean casserole, but I would absolutely make this again out of 10. And lastly, let's give our cranberry salsa a try. Cheers. Surprisingly, that's like way better than I thought it would be. I'm not sure what I was expecting. This still gives you that sort of nuance of cranberry flavor, but it's got the spices and everything of salsa. It's actually really, really good. I will actually probably start making this for all the Thanksgivings moving forward. Anyways, that's what we got. That's what I think, but hey, let's see what Nash thinks. Hey bud, how you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to eating all the stuff I've been smelling you cook all day.
Well, check it out. We made all these Thanksgiving sides you wanted, and of course we made a dog-friendly version of each of them just for you. Well, anyways, here we go. First, we got the sausage cornbread stuffing.
More of that, please.
And here's the Ruth's crisp sweet potato casserole.
I don't know how you could say that's too sweet. I think it's delicious.
The corn casserole.
Yummy, yummy in my doggy tummy.
The green bean casserole.
That one's so good, I'll eat it right off the floor.
And the cranberry salsa.
That's just a rabbit food smoothie. That's a no for me, dog.
Fair enough. Well, what do you think?
These are all great sides. Of course, you know I'm going to say you should add bacon to all of them, but solid nonetheless. And tell Grandpa I'm sorry I didn't like his salsa.
Anything you want to say to your fans?
When we focus on our gratitude, the tide of disappointment goes out and the tide of love rushes in.
Nash approves, I approve. Look, these are 5 great dishes, all really easy to make and pretty foolproof, so go try them. But hey, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you all. Love you all. If you wouldn't mind taking a second, go like, share, subscribe, hype, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. If there's anything you want me to make, you want me and Nash to taste, go ahead and drop that down in the comments. And hey, if you like this video, go check out some of our other side dish videos. And just remember, cook more, eat better, embrace the chaos. That's it for now, folks. Until next time, have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy you and yours. And hey, let us know in the comments, what are you thankful for? And until then, be good and peace.